English Step by Step. What is a phrasal verb? This is a video with an overview of phrasal verbs. So you can watch this one before you go on to watch the other videos I've made about specific groups of phrasal verbs. Now, if you like the content of this video, please click like and subscribe, and you can request a lesson in the comments below. This is an overview video about phrasal verbs. These are some important points to remember about how we use phrasal verbs and how we structure phrasal verbs. And you can watch this video in combination with the other videos I've made about specific phrasal verbs. So here we have point number 1. What is a phrasal verb? Well, it's a verb with 2 or 3 parts. For example, cut down is a phrasal verb with 2 parts. Look forward to is a common phrasal verb with 3 parts. So, point number 1 on my list here is some phrasal verbs have an object. Now, that means in many books they are called transitive phrasal verbs. Here's 2 examples. The children made up a story. Now, made up is the phrasal verb. A story is the object of the phrasal verb. Next example. The passengers got on the train. Got on is the phrasal verb. The train is the object of the phrasal verb. Now, not all phrasal verbs have an object. In the same way, not all ordinary verbs have objects. For example, buy food. Buy is a verb. Food is the object. But for example, I swim, there is no object. Swim is the verb and there is no object. Let's look at some examples of phrasal verbs which don't have an object. Now these are called intransitive phrasal verbs. 2 examples. The children woke up. The car broke down. You see, there is no object. Now, the next point to remember about phrasal verbs is that some transitive phrasal verbs, in other words, phrasal verbs with an object, are separable. That means they can be separated. Let's look at the first example. The students looked up the word in a dictionary. Now, looked up is the phrasal verb. The word is the object. We can also say the student looked the word up in a dictionary. So looked and up can be separated and the object can go in the middle. Let's look at example number 2. She threw away the rubbish. We can also say she threw the rubbish away. Next example. They set up a business. They set a business up. Next one. The verb is separable if it is followed by an adverb. Now, you don't need to know the grammatical details, but it's sometimes useful to know that these words are adverbs. For example, up. Look the word up. So up is an adverb. If it's an adverb, the phrasal verb can be separated. Another example. Away. Throw the food away. Next example, out. Put the fire out. Or off. Tell the children off. So, some phrasal verbs are separable and some phrasal verbs are inseparable. 2 examples. 3 examples. The babysitter looked after the children. Now in this case, we can't say the babysitter looked the children after. Now the reason for this is the word after. The word after is a preposition. Now if the phrasal verb has a preposition, like after, then you can't separate it. Another example. The police looked into the crime. Now you can't say the police looked the crime into, because into is a preposition. Next example. We came across some old photos. Now you can't say we came some old photos across, again, because across is a preposition. So let's look at some more examples of preposition. The verb is inseparable if it is followed by a preposition. For example, after, look after the children. For, care for his parents. Into, look into the problem. On, get on the bus. And you could also say get into the bus, get off the bus. Get inside the bus, for example. These are all prepositions. So how do you know if a verb is separable or inseparable? Well, often it's difficult to know if it's an adverb or a preposition in the second part of the phrasal verb. So my advice is just look at lots of examples, read a lot, listen a lot, and you'll hear the more common phrasal verbs coming up again and again, and you get a feeling for which ones are separable and which ones are inseparable. Let's move on to the next point about these separable phrasal verbs. Now this is about the pronouns. Now pronouns here are object pronouns. For example, it, him, her, them, me. Here's an example. The student looked it up. Now we can't say looked up it because this pronoun always goes in the middle. The student looked the word up, the student looked it up. Next example, I put them on. In this case, let's say we're talking about a pair of shoes. I put the shoes on. I put them on. Now we can't say I put on them because the pronoun must go in the middle. Another example, her father woke her up. Again, we can't say her father woke up her because her, the pronoun, must go in the middle. Now the next point on the list here for the overview is about phrasal verbs with three parts. Now the most common one here is I'm looking forward to. Now these phrasal verbs with three parts are never separable. You can't separate them. I'm looking forward to, for example, or get rid of is another common example, or put up with is another common example, or also cut down on. So if a verb has three parts, it is not separable. Example number one, I'm looking forward to the holidays. You can't say I'm looking forward the holidays to. It has to be I'm looking forward to the holidays. Next example, we can't put up with the noise. Now put up with is a phrasal verb which means tolerate. So in this case we can't say we can't put up with the noise. You have to say we can't put the noise up with. You have to say we can't put up with the noise because the verb has three parts. Now it's not necessary to analyze the grammar, but you can understand that up is an adverb and with is a preposition. Put up with. Forward is an adverb. To is a preposition. Looking forward to. So in these cases, we don't separate them. So those were some general comments about phrasal verbs, about their structure and their use. So now you can move on to watch my other videos with more specific groups of phrasal verbs. So remember, click like and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this, and you can request a lesson in the comments below.